There you go. So let me tell you a little bit about me and my sister, Cheryl. We both grew up in Auburn, New York. That's where Mary Ann lives now. And my mother, that's her hometown. So my mother, my parents got divorced. My mother remarries her high school sweetheart, and they moved to Chino, California in 1983. My sister, shortly after, moves as well to Chino, California. And while she's there, she gets married. She has Sean Michael, who was born in 1990. And then, just like other people's happens, she ends up getting divorced and moves to San Jose, California. She's a pharmaceutical sales rep, and to further her career, she moved to San Jose. Part of her territory when she was there was Hawaii, which will come into figure in a few minutes. So she always had dogs. She always had dogs, and Sean loved dogs, so they were very dog-friendly people. So Sean really liked being with dogs, and he liked training dogs. So that's kind of how this all kind of started. His interests were varied, and my sister supported all of his interests. Whatever he did, she was always there for him, whether it be sports or personal, whatever he did. So Sean's interests were quite unique. He liked, like all kids do, music, singing, dancing, things like that. He was a skateboarder with the California Skateboarding League, and he won multiple awards while he was skateboarding, competition-wise. He loved surfing, and he loved to surf in Hawaii, and that's where Hawaii comes in with my sister. Being a pharmaceutical sales rep, and he was a young kid, she would take him with her. She had to go 4 times a year. For 2 weeks, they would go to Hawaii, and in the hotel, he got to know a lot of the locals, and some of the locals taught him the surfing, and they would take him out on their days off while he was, because he's killing time while he's there. So he would take him with him. Sean loved Hawaii so much that it was part of his dream was to become a handler, but the other part of his dream was to live in Hawaii when he got a little older. So he likes going also snowboarding. He, believe it or not, they have mountains in California, and they have snow on those mountains. So my sister would take him up to go snowboarding. And when he would come to visit us here in the wintertime, which wasn't often, but when he did, I took him to Greek Peak, so he got to ski at Greek Peak, which he loved, Greek Peak. He also, too, was an avid animal lover and a devoted dog lover, and he and my sister adopted a German Shepherd named Lena when Sean was 12, and that was the start of Sean's dream of becoming a dog handler because of that. He also joined the Santa Clara Explorer Post, which is or Explorer Cadet Program, which is similar to Boy Scouts. An Explorer Post is a career-minded scout troop, so it's open to boys and girls, and they go and learn whether or not they want to be what their career is. We have them around here for the EMTs, we have a fire department, there's a police department one. In Sean's case, he joined the California Police Department, and there for the Explorer Post, there he did ride-alongs with the police, for the police officers, and he got to know their canine units. And he met his mentor, which helped him develop his want for law enforcement, and I'll show you that in the next. While he was on the high school, Sean did join the cadets, and he met a man named Bill Davis. And Bill gave him more of a definition of what he wanted to do. And Sean was young, he was only 14, so this gave him an idea. He wanted to go into law enforcement, he liked the beauty of the law enforcement agencies, he wanted to work with them, and he loved the canine handlers. So Bill actually developed his true passion for law enforcement because Bill encouraged him and gave him, it was a role model for Sean, because at this point Sean didn't have a father around. My sister was a single mother, so this gave him a male role model, and what a nice role model with the law enforcement agency. Nowadays, because of that, we give a scholarship to the Explorer Post program, or Explorer Cadet program, to help some young man, or woman, whether they want to go into college or not, but it's there for them to encourage them to become law enforcement officers. Okay. And these, by the way, are all my nephew Sean. So one of the things that the Santa Clara Department told him was to help become a member of the police department. They couldn't afford the training, but they recommend, and Nate will tell you too, they do recommend if you join the Army and go into a military police end of it, that you actually bypass that part of the police academy training, correct?
Yeah.
So this,
it depends on the state. But
yeah, but pretty much, and that's what it is. So this is what Sean did. So he joined the military because that was his goal, was to work at Santa Clara. So this is all Sean. Right after he became, this is when he just graduated with my sister, and I love this picture. So this is Sean Michael, and this one here comes into play a little later, but he sent this picture to my sister and said to her, Mom, did you see the post? He called her in the morning, and mind you, Afghanistan is 12 hours to 14 hours away, so when he called her, it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. Did you see my post on Facebook? And she's like, not yet. California time, not yet. So when she went, she saw the picture, and she posted to him on the bottom, I love you too, Pikachu. Because he was a Pokemon fan. So that's what she told him, I love you too, Pikachu. Well, 1,100 men and women in the unit that he was in called him Pikachu because they liked that nickname. So Sean joined the California National Guard Military Police, and he was deployed to Afghanistan for Operation Enduring Freedom in November of 2010. On November 16th of 2000, I'm going to get emotional. On November 16th of 2011, Sean was out running physical therapy or PT training with his commanding officer and some of the kids from his unit. And they went halfway around the perimeter of the base. And Sean said, you know, I'm going home in 10 days. I don't want to run anymore. He says, I'm going to go back to the barracks. So he took a trip back to the barracks and went through the motor pool. At the same time that he did that, insurgents from Afghanistan lobbed a rocket into the motor pool area, and Sean was killed instantly by shrapnel. One of the worst things we could ever happen, since my nephew was my sister's only child. It was the hardest thing we had to go through. My sister was assigned a casualty assistance officer who helped her with everything from the minute of his death that she was told, and actually to help us even start this organization. Before she left, she called us in New York because she was going to go to Dover, Delaware to pick up Sean's, to greet. I want to say greet, but it's not a greeting. So we could be there for Sean when he made it back to U.S. soil, even though it wasn't the way we wanted to see him. So she contacted all of her family in New York, my mother, my 2 brothers, and my sister-in-laws and I, and we got in the car and drove down immediately so we could be there for her, and she and her fiance flew in. So she also at the same time contacted the friends that she has, extended family in California, as well as Officer Davis, and she let him know, and he let the rest of the law enforcement family in Santa Clara know. One of the most beautiful things that you can ever watch, and I don't know if anybody's ever experienced it, is a funeral, to see the respect that one of our fallen soldiers is given by those in the military and the law enforcement and police and fire departments. There were also many canine units because Sean was involved with the canine handlers that liked him. So they were also in attendance at the funeral. And at one point during my sister's eulogy, one of the dogs started howling. So we felt that Sean was there and that this dog was noticing that Sean was missing physically, but knew he was there. So it was an emotional time. So the procession from the church to the cemetery, and this is when he landed in Santa Clara, and the procession from the cemetery, from the church to the cemetery was lined. They closed the highway off so that we could go through, and this was a major highway, so they closed it all off till we got to the cemetery. And on every overpass, there were either fire departments and police departments, military people. They were on the street corner saluting my nephew as he went by and underneath. And that to me was the most emotional part of this whole experience. And again, like I said, everybody was saluting. This was actually at the funeral itself, because here we are at the funeral, and there are, the police officers are right there. I'm sorry. And that was the birth of our foundation. What do you do with the death benefits for your only child? Well, shortly after she got back from Dover, the Santa Clara Police Department, she had mentioned to her fiance that Sean really liked to be a dog handler, and it was too bad that he couldn't become one. And that Santa Clara, she knew it would have been a perfect place for him to be a handler for because of the association. When she got back from Dover, Officer Davis, as well as some of the other law enforcement agency men other police officers, came to visit her to pay their respects. And she was telling about her dream would be to give somebody a dog, an agency, so that they could at least be Sean's memory. And Santa Clara was looking for one. They actually were in the process, but they didn't have the funding, and they wanted to find a dog. So it was only befitting that we created this not-for-profit, so that we could give a dog to Santa Clara. The first dog we gave was Argo. Argo is actually a Providence in Afghanistan. So after the dog was purchased, the handler called my sister and wanted to know if she'd like to have the dog's name changed, because he didn't know if it would hurt the memory of Sean because of that. And Cheryl said it was only fitting that he was a dog from Afghanistan because that ties everything in together. So that was our first dog. To date, we've provided for 14 different communities all across the United States, not just in California. We have in New York State, we have Maine, and we have Missouri as well. We've had 17 dogs. We just got through providing for the 17th dog, and we hope to be able to provide for more. To date, we've provided over $250,000 worth of funding for dogs, the training, or the equipment that they need to be put on the police forces. And everything that we get that we have, this is how we generate some of our funds, are items for donation costs. Everything you see here is available for a cost of, it's not a price, you're not paying for it. 100% of the donation goes to the next dog. My sister, being a pharmaceutical rep, does get bonuses, and that's how she funds all of the stuff that we get. She pays for it out of her own pocket. We are always looking for people, corporations and things that may help us by donating a large sum of money so we can dedicate it to merchandise so that I don't have my sister. So we're just starting on that, but I don't want my sister to always have to pay. So that's how we do it. So in February of 2015, Auburn dog handler, there were 2 dogs on the Auburn force. One was getting ready to retire and the other one had just been purchased and trained. The handler came home after running errands and the dog was dead. So he was stuck. Here was this one dog going to be going, and so they had an article in the newspaper. And my brother, who at the time was living in Florida, contacted my mother in Auburn and said, geez, Mom, maybe Cheryl can help. My mother contacted the handler contacted my sister, so it kind of went all around. And my sister said she was more than happy to because this was our hometown. And Sean loved coming to Auburn to visit my mother and her husband and spend time with all the family. So we granted the money to purchase the dog and the training for the dog, and the handler calls my sister and says, I want to name it after Sean. What was Sean's nickname? Do you remember the story? So she told him the story about Pikachu, and Andy named it the dog Pikachu, and we all know him as Chewy today. And he dedicated him to the city in honor and memory of Sean. That's one thing that we ask, is all the dogs are dedicated. Anything we do, the dog, the care kits, or the vehicle kits, the training, Kevlar vest, anything that we do is dedicated in Sean's memory. So that keeps my nephew one more day alive in all of our hearts, although he's always going to be alive in mine. So the East Coast begins. My sister brought some shirts and dogs with her and came to visit us in September of 2015. My nephew Sean, or the dog, we figured this way we could pay it forward, offer some stuff, let the community give us some money for the next dog. So it turned out really well, and one of the vendors there said to my sister, how about coming to the Ithaca Dog Fest? It's our 2nd year. We're offering you to put a booth up, and you're not going to have to pay for the site, just come and do it. Well, as a single person, I said, there's no way I can do this to my sister. There's no way I can do this alone. I would need help. My cousin Marianne and my cousin Bridget stepped up and said, if you want to do this, I'll help you out. And that was 3 years ago, and since then they've helped me in almost everything we've done. This was our first booth. We were looking at this picture. This was our first booth. It's kind of, we didn't have a tent at the time, and there were things that we didn't have. So this is the start of what we had, which I would say in 3 years has turned out pretty good. So thanks to Marianne and Bridget, that's the East Coast. In 2016, we were approached by Nathan Moran, who called me and said, or texted me and said that he needs to put his dog Rush onto the police force. He and his wife had donated the dog to the force, as well as the training to the force. And the force still told him, I'm sorry, we can't afford to put him on the force. They needed the car kit to make it dog friendly. So Nate approached me and wanted to know if we could do something about it, if we could help. And my sister and I told him yes, and we did purchase the car kit for Nate. This is the first day that Rush went on the job. My husband and I own Optivision of Cortland on Tompkins Street, and Nate came by with the new vehicle. You can see the bars in the window, the new vehicle and Rush, and so we could get a picture and see his first day on the job because of us. And that was in December of 2016. In April of 2017, Nate was doing the business showcase with Rush, and I noticed the Kevlar vest that he had, and I said to Nate, does he have a Kevlar vest? And he said the vest that he wears is a used vest from Binghamton. that at the time Binghamton got new vests that are all pretty much measured to the dog. And so they were getting rid of theirs, and so they gave Nate that. And Nate said to me, you know, that it's okay, but it's not meant for Rush. So with a group called Rebels with a Cause, which is a fundraising group in Cortland, I contacted them because I only had so much funds in my account to help him. And between the two of us, we were able to provide enough funds for a Kevlar vest for Nate and Rush. So Rush now is fully out, he's full. He's got everything he needs. So we handed you out some interesting facts about canines. First thing about it is in 1908 was the first canine unit in police. And that was in the New York Police Department in New York City. And the patrol was called the Patrol Squad 1 and put him on the street. In 1951, I understand they took the dogs off the street. And I haven't done research to find out if they've incorporated them again. But that went from 1908 to 1951. So it was a pretty lengthy time for them to be in the police. The first breeds that they ever used were German Shepherds, and if you look at a Shepherd, he is a little scary. So that's a perfect ideal breed for a criminal to look at and be afraid of. These dogs are also used, or were used at that time, in World War I and World War II, Korean War and Vietnam War. So all the major wars we've had, the military also use military police dogs as well. They use them just like the canine units. It's a military canine unit. And so that was for those. Now the other popular breeds, which is what Rush is a Belgian Malinois. Those are, oh, is he a Shepherd? Then why am I thinking he was a Belgian?
Kenny's dog.
Oh, that's it, Kenny's. They're a little crazier, but they also they both have great noses. The Belgians, they call them Belgian Malinois. That's a little nickname they give them. They have a little more of intense smell on their noses, and they're a little stronger, but they're both great for sniffing things. And we're going to get to the sniffs in a few. Ooh. The dog that you saw in the last picture, sorry, because they also are looking at rescue animals. So just recently, they're looking at pit bulls, again, because of the look of a pit bull. But they're also looking at other kinds of animals as well. And one of the dogs that we have helped was a Labrador that was rescued and turned into a canine dog, which is great because the Labradors look very friendly. And so people aren't afraid of him, and he's a great dog. And so we provided the training for him. This is Lena. This was my sister's dog that started this all. Many of the dogs are bred in Europe, and then they send them over here. Nate and I were just talking about one that you just received.
Yeah, my wife owns Homefront Canine, and she trains military and police dogs, and we just got a Dutch Shepherd, 5-month-old Dutch Shepherd from Holland. So we just got that last week.
And we were talking about the prices of the Dutch Shepherd, and with her, it was...
We paid $2,200, but that's just for a puppy.
The puppy, 5 months old, and because it goes more. And one of the other things, and Nate will tell you, the Dutch Shepherd, she knows commands in Dutch. So a lot of the times you'll hear the commands that they give them are a different language, and that's because they're trained in that language so that the criminals can't tell them sit and the dog, not that the dog would, but in case, they have no idea. So the criminals don't know what kind of dog it is and what the commands are known for that. Now Rush, what kind does he use?
So Rush is taught, he's bilingual. He's German and English. He knows both.
But see, so like when he gives them the command in German, the criminal that's running has no clue what he's giving. So the cost for the dogs vary by state and area. In California, the dogs run about $10,000, but in New York State, for Andy's dog Pikachu, it only ran us about $7,000. For Nate and I were just talking, the car kit that was Nate's that we provided for was $5,500. So if you put in the $7,000 for the dog and $5,500 for the car kit plus the $2,000 for the Kevlar vest, a dog can
all
cost.
The training aids,
And the right, that didn't include the training. So a dog can cost between $10,000 and $15,000 if you think about it. So we provide as much as we can to help them get that dog on the force. This dog, actually, all these dogs are for Sharon canine dogs. The canine dogs live with their handlers. A lot of dogs like Rush live in the same house as the handler does, so they're a regular dog when they're not working. But the minute they put on their vest or the minute they know they're going to work, their attitude changes because they know they're a working dog. Some of them have the Taj Mahals of dog kennels outside. Those are dog kennels that are usually heated and air conditioned. So these dogs may not live with their handler inside, but they live a beautiful life outside. So even though they don't live it. And just like, I didn't put it down here, just if you ask any of the handlers if it's bothersome that they have the dogs with them 24/7, they'll tell you no. Because it's not only their partner, but their best friend as well.
I get sick of some of my coworkers. I don't get sick of him.
And that's the best part about it. And that the luau picture that you just saw, my sister holds a luau fundraiser in California, a Hawaiian-based luau, because of Sean. And she raises, the first year she raised like $20,000, but in the last 4 years that she's held it, we've raised over $75,000. And this all goes toward the next dog. Dogs are on the force about 6 to 8 years. This is actually Radar and Jeremy. Radar was doing a bomb sweep at one of the sports arenas. The Super Bowl that they had in San Francisco, of the dogs that did the bomb sweep, eight of them were provided by Sean's canines. We were the ones that provided funding for those, so it's quite nice that we did that. When the dog is ready to retire, they usually retire and live with their handler. And the handler they just have to get used to the fact that their handler now has another dog that's doing the work, and they get to be the old geriatric in the background. Sometimes the dog's not ready to retire, but the handler is. And there's a couple of things they do. Most of the time, a lot of the times, they take the dog and retire the dog at the same time the handler retires. But sometimes, like in the case of Kenny Bush and Lummel in Cortland, they took the dog and retrained him with Kenny. And actually, he really responded to Kenny so beautifully that you would never have known it was the same dog that they had on the force a while ago. So in this case, they utilized Lummel again for another handler, and it worked out really beautifully. Most dogs are dual-purpose dogs. Rush is a dual-purpose dog. Dual-purpose means two things. It means they do one job and then they have another active job as well. In all the cases, the first ability that they have, or the first job that they have, is, in Rush's case, drug enforcement. So Rush is trained to smell out any kind of narcotic, and he gives Nate a sign by pawing, right?
No, he's a passive dog. So basically what he'll do is he will smell at the source of the illegal drug, and he will freeze in motion or down, depending on the height of it, and he'll bark at the source.
So there are two, and the other kind is an explosive dog. So the aggressive part, we were talking about, the pawing is an aggressive part. So if a drug dog is pawing, that's great. But if he's an explosive dog, it's one thing you don't want him to do is paw at the explosive. So that's where the passive one is, where he would sit or lay down. So those are two dual purposes. They usually don't have the same dog doing both jobs, not a drug dog and a bomb dog, because they want the dog to be able to understand which is more important. Because if it's a drug dog and he accidentally, and he's a drug bomb and he's on it for a bomb and he does the pawing thing, then there goes that. The other part of it that makes them the dual purpose is they're patrol dogs as well. So Rush is on patrol with Nate whenever he works, the dog works as well. If Nate walks the streets of Cortland, the dog walks with him. Not only is he good for crowd control, but he's also good for public relations. And he does little beauties like this. And Rush, when you meet him, is a lover. He is just the best dog for public relations for the Cortland City Police. So there are other ways that you can contribute. Like I said, we have things that you can purchase. So you can visit our booth, and this is the new booth. Notice how much nicer it looks. And this was last year at the Pumpkin Fest, and Rush and Nate were there as well. We also have Kim Natoli, who is the Cortland County Sheriff canine handler. She's the only female in the area, I believe. She also volunteers to help us out too. So even though we didn't provide for her, she's a canine fan, so she wants to help us out. So one of the ways is to visit our booth. Another way is to visit Sean'sCanines.org. And all of these, by the way, are in the brochure. You can see the different pieces. And Amazon Smile, and this is my favorite, because if people shop on Amazon, which a lot of people do, you can go to Amazon Smile and register Sean's Canine as your charity of choice. And then every time you make a purchase on Amazon, and you don't even know this, part of your purchase goes donated to Sean's Canine. Without you even paying any attention to how much I want to donate or anything, they take a part of that purchase you have, and it goes to Sean. So that's an easy way to donate. And again, it's in the brochure. There's the link in the brochure so you can get that. But we do accept donations, large or small, at any time. We have a donation jar. We just received a donation from a company in Auburn that, very generous, but that, you know, she's a big advocate for canines, so she wanted to help us out, and so we just received that too. So, large or small. And then, I'd like to introduce you our Cortland County PD, or Cortland PD officer, Nathan Moran, and Rush. This is the day that Nate introduced Rush to the city council, so he was dedicated in Sean's memory. This was at the Pumpkin Fest, and this is my favorite picture, because it makes you see that he is a regular dog. He's not just a police dog, he's a regular dog. So, any questions? Did I talk too fast? Good. Well, it is lunch, and I want you guys to be able to, you know.
So I'll go grab Rush. You guys can meet him. He's a very friendly dog.
Yeah.
He's trained in narcotics. We're certified through New York State Department of Criminal Justice Services for marijuana, methamphetamine, heroin, and cocaine. Then on the patrol aspect, he's trained in apprehension, which is the bite work, tracking, evidence searches, which probably my favorite part is the evidence searches. The way they can do that is absolutely amazing. So, like she said, any day I'm working, he's working. He comes home with me. He doesn't have an outdoor kennel. He comes right in the house, lays down, lounges around.
Well, and he has a young child. She's only a little over a year, and she lays all over him.
Oh yeah, she'll climb all over him, no issues. But as soon as he comes to work, he's a completely different dog. But I'll go grab him and you guys can meet him.
Yeah. And we do have trading cards for Rush too.
Yes.
A lot of times the
You need me to grab them?
Actually, I got some.
Okay.
A lot of the canine units have, some of them have trading cards, which is nice because that way they can get to meet and they trade cards. The luau in California, we actually in the last year, we did cards for all of the guys that came to the luau. The luau draws most of our dogs are there, and I want to say we have between 8 to 10 dogs that come every year. So, and I go to our website and you can see all these pictures of the luau and things like that. We have such a good time. We have honest to God hula dancers, fire spinners, you name it, butterfly release. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But you're gonna love Rush. Let me get the trading cards out. 10. How old is Rush? Rush, I believe he's going to be 4. He was, I want to say, a little over 2 when we got him, and that was just it. Actually, I don't know. I don't know if I put him in there. Check in the bottom of one of those cards. Say something though about Rush.
Yes, how old he was.
Oh, right, I know, but there is. I think he's like 4. He's 4, and I think he got him. He's absolutely beautiful, and he's a lover. You're gonna love him. He's gonna love all these people. The tail's going. Hey, Rush! Hi, honey. I got something for you.
Yep, she knows she feeds you.
Good boy. Come meet some people. I want to know. Nate, how old is Rush?
So Rush is a 3-year-old German Shepherd. His bloodlines go back to the Netherlands and West German. So basically, I said he's a narcotics dog, and then there's bomb dogs. All the training's the same, it's just different odors. So if I decided prior to putting him on narcotics I wanted him to be a bomb dog, I could have done that.
Oh, there goes a refreshment.
Come on.
Mine's real well, just like
He listens better than my daughter.
Does he get any bigger than that, or
What's that?
Does he get any bigger, or?
Nope, he's full grown. He's 82 pounds.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing dog. He, like she said, they typically can work till about 9 years old. Depending on who you talk to, what scientist does what, they say their nose is approximately 100 times, anywhere to 100,000 times better than ours. Hey, come here.
He wants another snack.
I know, he's like,
Begging for snack.
yeah.
So he does all of his work for his ball, and that's what he's waiting for. So I have his ball in my pocket.
We have to explain, when they're trained, they are trained with an object that they appreciate. Sometimes it's a towel that they like, in Rush's case, it's a ball. So they always plays with him with this ball. To introduce the fact of the training to go towards the narcotics end of it, the ball is introduced and then smells are introduced to the ball. So not only is he just setting the ball, but now he's smelling association with the ball, that this is what it is. So he's thinking all the time when he's out there doing the evidence work and he's trying to find something, that he's going to find that ball because he's smelling the drug and he knows the drug is associated with the ball. Not always does the ball have the drug smell on it, but he knows the ball is in Nate's pocket. So that is his focus. He will do anything for that ball. And that's how they get these dogs to train them. So it's their favorite
once he finds
toy.
whatever he's looking for, he gets to play with
He
the
gets
ball.
rewarded with the ball. Yeah. He gets the ball quite often. He's spoiled.
What's different in the breeding in Europe and here as far as that breed's concerned?
Well, so a lot of the Americanized German Shepherds have been overbred.
Oh,
He was actually bred in America.
oh, okay.
My wife and I bought him. She trained him. He was supposed to be her dog. She got pregnant, so she couldn't do the training anymore. So I kind of took over. I started donating. I started going down to the police canine trainings down in Binghamton once a week on one of my days off. And I did that for approximately 8 months before he was ready to certify. When he was ready to certify, I reached out to my chief, reached out to Sean's canines, and it all happened to work out. But it's a lot of work, and so you can buy a puppy, a working line puppy is typically around $200 to $2,500 just for an 8-week-old puppy. And then, you build them up, you do the training. A complete finished police dog at approximately 2 years old is probably between $12,000 and $20,000. So it depends on the vendor. So, the dogs aren't cheap at all, by any means. And it's a great thing that they're doing. They're such a great resource. They boost morale. Like I said, they can find drugs. Times we can't find anything, it just brings a great enforcement to our streets. It makes our streets safer. And it's just a great show of force.
Well, he went on the force the beginning of December, and on the 25th of December, Nate sent me a text message. Rush had confiscated 80 packets.
85 packets of heroin on a traffic stop we got on Christmas Day.
Christmas Day. So,
Now, mind you, I don't like arresting people on Christmas. But that was definitely worth it.
and then when he said that, I said, that makes me feel good. It made my sister and I both feel good that this was what we want. Sean's dream fulfilled.
You went into some house, or was it a traffic
No, it was a
stop?
traffic stop. He had it in the car.
And when you stop somebody, oh no, not thinking that, oh well. Gee, I guess this car, why would you be suspicious?
Yeah, what made you
take the dog out of the car with you when you get out of the car?
No, so I do basic interview stuff. I talk to the person. I get a feel for what they're telling me. That's honestly what I get paid for, is talking to people. So I over years of doing this job, you get a feeling for if someone's lying to you.
You made a traffic stop for some reason.
Right. He had tinted windows.
Had what?
Tinted windows, which is illegal in New York State.
The dark one.
Yeah. Rush, here. So that was the reason for the stop. And then, you get out and you talk to him. I had a coworker of mine on the passenger side, and he saw a heroin packet on the center console. Empty heroin packet. That's enough for us to search the car with the dog.
Is there a command that you give him when you want him to find something?
Yeah. So for his, it depends. So for article searches, which an article search is, or an evidence search, is human odor on an object. This front yard could be filled with trash, and he's going to find the most recently touched object, just based on human odor. So his command for that is search, and his command to find drugs is find it.
Yeah.
Tell us about his vest.
So this is actually just a harness.
Oh, okay.
And his vest, and this is specifically made for him. I took all of his measurements, gave him the weight, his height. They made this vest specifically for him. So it's not adjustable at all. So he can't gain any weight. But
That's okay. So the other part, the Kevlar part of it fits
and
over.
then the Kevlar part literally goes over top, which is nice because he wears this every day on patrol.
The what goes over it?
The Kevlar. You know, so this vest I'm wearing is a Kevlar vest,
On top of this.
and his Kevlar vest just goes over top of it.
Is it heavy?
Yeah, it's probably about 5-10 pounds. But that, which is quite a bit for an 80-pound dog. So that's why he doesn't wear it all the time. That harness is like 1.5 pounds. So he wears that all the time, and then if
Not at home?
No.
In the house?
only when we're working.
If you're going out in a hurry, well, he's got to put together everything.
Yep. Which he's good. I lay it on the floor, he'll step right into it.
Oh, okay.
So he knows when you put on the vest that he's going to
I'm
work.
going
Yep.
to work. Oh.
Yep.
Well, and Nate said the best part about this harness vest is that if he's doing a house search, he can actually lift the dog up and put him in with the harness. He can lift him up because of the handles that are on
Oh,
it. So it
that's
makes it
nice.
easier to put the dog where he needs to put him.
Why would you need to find something that had just been touched by a person?
Robbery, burglary, firearm, anything like that.
Well, especially if the
And our-
criminal's running.
Yeah. A lot of times they'll run, they'll start ditching stuff
Oh.
Yep.
as they're running. So it's nice. Anytime we do a track for a missing or wanted person,
So he can, do you have to give him like somebody's shoe and then he finds the,
nope, he smells for human odor.
really?
We've
I
seen him
think
located
I
at
saw
key.
you probably running through the backyard between Hamilton Street behind the Pond Gardens.
That was not me, that was the other handler. that was what, last week?
I saw the vehicles, but it's behind Bob's house. I saw everybody.
Yeah, that was our other handler, Kenny Bush.
Well, the other thing about
And
dogs,
that they were chasing that guy because he actually broke into 2
Been in
houses.
2 or 3 houses.
Yeah.
see, and there you go, that's
One
what
to
they're
me.
looking for. One of the other things too that we don't talk about is that, like I said, these dogs live with them 24/7. So it's not just the fact that we provided the money for the kit or whatever to get the dog on a horse. Nate actually has to provide food and medical treatments for the dog as well. Does that come out of the PD budget?
Yep. So the police department pays for anything medical, and that includes flea and tick every 3 months. The food is donated by Purina, so we have to drive up to Buffalo once a year and pick up dog food for both our dogs. But Purina donates to police dogs, so it's completely free. We just have to go get it.
Well, and just recently, Rush had to have his knees worked on.
Yep. So Rush had elbow dysplasia. He had bone fragments in his elbows just floating in the joint. So he had to have surgery on that, which was a $4,000 surgery at Cornell, and Cornell donated half of it, which was nice. So he had that done.
But you wouldn't know it the way he runs and
He's back
walks.
to
You would
normal.
not have any clue that he had any surgery done. He's a good dog, don't you think?
He's just watching that ball.
My wife does, yes.
What's it called?
Home front canine. We have too many dogs.
Well, he just told me they got another one coming too.
Yeah, I gotta go pick another one up on Friday from Indiana.
But they're also starting to breed. And we were talking about breeders. A lot of them are bred out of town. Now that they're starting, a lot of the United States are doing breeders, and they're being qualified breeders for canine units. Nate and his wife Donna are starting to do that as well. They're starting to expand into not only breeding the dog, but training the dog, or not only training the dog, but now breeding the dog as well.
Yeah, I'll touch on that.
Yeah.
So basically, she went over the cost briefly. Typically, you get like a 1.5, 2-year-old green dog is what they call it. A green dog is a dog that has no training on it whatsoever. That's what a lot of the police departments are looking for, are green dogs, because then they go to a state certified school. So each state has different rules as to what needs to be done. New York State, the closest school is up in Syracuse, and it's free. Rush and I didn't do that because he was already trained, and I trained him. So the price of your typical green dog, which is about 1.5, 2 years old, no training, is anywhere between $3,000 and $4,000 typically. In our kennel we have a female German Shepherd from Czech. We have a female German Shepherd from Germany. We're picking this female up, who's from Holland, on Friday. And we typically outsource our studs, so our German female is going to go into heat, and we're going to ship her up to Alberta to be bred to a Holland dog, and she'll be shipped back to us. And typically what we do is we take all the puppies, we grade them, and then we sell them to police departments.
So Rush doesn't get to participate?
No, Rush doesn't get to
Permission from the court.
Just got it.
Well, because by rights, this dog is owned by the Cortland PD.
Yep.
He's not Nate's dog.
No.
He's the Cortland PD's dog.
And not to mention, so there's two things with his elbows, the bone fragments he had in his elbows. It's either environmentally, which means he got injured, or it's genetic, and there's no way to prove either. So with that being said, I would never breed this dog because of the possibility of him passing it on to his puppies.
Would he react though if a nice little female dog came in here now?
Oh, yeah.
He's really pretty good with other dogs.
I was gonna
around.
say,
Oh,
suppose a white poodle.
he's
Yeah,
the-
yeah,
He's the gentlest dog with other dogs.
He's a great role model, or not role model, he's a great representative of the Cortland PD, and that's what I really wanted you guys to see this. This dog is quite a unique dog when it comes to
We
canine
we train once a week. Every Tuesday we go down to Binghamton and we do in-service training. And that's not enough. You know, we have to train these dogs every day to maintain it.
Well,
And
so
we
training
do-
is ongoing, and then the beginning, how long is the training in the beginning? You said 8 months was the beginning training that you had with
So
Josh?
typically the dogs start training at 8 weeks old. And that's just, you know, we do free shaping, which is a term in the dog training world, but basically is teach the dog to think on its own, not to be so reliable on the handler, and that it can make its own decisions type thing.
Is there a preference in having males?
No, Binghamton has 3 female.
So they're
Dogs.
both there.
Yeah, it's all based on what the dog has. You can actually breed two police dogs and only have 3 out of 10 be capable of doing the police work.
How
So
can you tell when they're puppies?
you can tell based on nerves or environmentals, basically their desire to work. You put them through a bunch of testing.
And that was how Nate decided. He actually asked the retired handler, Roger Stafford, he asked him to take a look at the dog and give him an indication, because he and Donna Lynn both thought this dog would be a great canine dog. So they had him take a look at it and give them his idea whether or not, and he agreed. He said this dog would be a great addition to a police force, and that's when they started to go down. So not only did they train for 8 months, but like you said, it's ongoing weekly training. So they're never not training.
There's always maintenance to be done. Like I could say his tracking is lacking right now. I could go and hammer his tracking this week, and then next week something else is going to have to be maintained. So you see this right now, he's just trying to figure out what I want him to do to get the ball.
To go get what he needs to get. This dog does amazing little tricks. Nate will actually he walks, and the dog will walk in between his legs as Nate's walking. He will walk behind, he will back up, he will come forward. You ought to show him all the little, wait to see this, this is beautiful.
Back. Good boy. Back. Seats. Stand. Flaps. Seats. Back. Rack. Good boy. Wait. Push.
Not much room for that.
Yeah, not too much.
And notice there's no leash on the dog, and he's walking right next to Nate.
What would this dog do if somebody became aggressive with you?
It depends. What do you mean by aggressive?
Swung at you?
Oh, he'll bite.
Are you?
If you approach the vehicle that Nate's in with the dog, even if Nate's out of the vehicle and you approach the vehicle, immediately he starts barking because that's his territory. He's afraid of whoever's coming to the vehicle. Yeah, he's just such a
I don't think I'd mind to bite me. I'm just looking at those.
One of the things that they tell, we actually have a lot of children, a lot of young kids that come to us and want to know about how to become a canine handler themselves. And one of the things they say is when you first join the police force, if you have a canine on the force as well, volunteer to be their bite guide. Because that means that you're willing to have a dog bite your arm. They do have a vest that they wear.
I have a full suit, and I'll show you a mark from yesterday.
Oh, and it missed, huh?
This dog did to you?
No, not him. A different dog. So we have a suit, and basically the dogs are trained to bite the suit. And that's through like a lot of padding. But it's part of the job. Like I enjoy it because you know what? You're building these dogs up that'll could eventually have the potential to save someone's life.
Well, in the case of the terrorism in France, Paris, they actually, when they found where the terrorists were living, they sent in the canine units first. And unfortunately, one of the canine died. Russia felt so bad, they provided a dog for the Paris police department, a canine dog. They sent them a canine dog to replace it. But that just goes to show you a value that they have, because instead of risking the police officer's life, they rescue the dog. They risk the dog's life. Just recently, the other day, I think it was last week, a police officer in Massachusetts and his canine dog were with a criminal, and the criminal actually shot both the dog and the police officer. The dog survived, the police officer didn't. He was shot in the head. The dog was shot 3 times and he survived. So that goes to show, again, the value of having a unit on your force, so that you could send the dog in to apprehend somebody, not the police officer, in case there's somebody with the gun on the other side.
Do you ever put a camera on them? So
I actually
they can
do.
go in and see things?
So I have this little thing that goes over this patch. It goes right here, and it's a camera mount.
So you can send him in somewhere?
Yep, and I can see live footage.
Cool.
Those cameras, so Binghamton owns one. They got it through a bomb grant. Quiet. Lots. They got it through a bomb grant, but those cameras aren't cheap. They're about $8,000. And that's just equipment costs.
Does anything you guys do at work bother him? Does he feel bad after he's bitten a criminal?
Taking those drugs away! Nobody would feel bad about that.
The best thing about the dogs is, and this is a genetic trait that we test for, they don't have fears. You know what I mean? We could know that there's a guy in this building with a gun, and we could know his intentions, and the dog would not hesitate and go full bore into this building and search for that person. They have no fears. They just know their training, and that's the best thing about them. But I mean, you can send a dog in, or you can send a team of humans in and run the risk of, you know what I mean? I love him to death. He's the best dog I've ever had. He's
Smart.
Amazingly smart. But you know what? If it's him or a coworker of mine, it still comes down, he is a dog. So.
I heard that the dogs they used to find the bodies after 9/11, that it bothered them to find all these dead bodies. It depressed the dogs.
A lot of the cadaver dogs, which is what they are, so just like him, he's trained in narcotics. They're trained in cadaver, and there's actually been a lot of studies on those dogs. All the dust particles that they were sniffing for actually really affected their well-being, and that was actually the cause of it.
Oh, okay.
Is that too with a lot of drugs out there with
I carry Narcan
dangers?
on my belt, so if I carry Narcan in my truck if we go to an overdose call. But I carry Narcan on my belt for him. The reason I carry it on my belt for him and I carry it in the truck for somebody else is if he gets into it, he's an 80-pound dog. The same amount that would make a 200-pound man overdose would be devastating to him. So it could be split seconds. So
Is it an injection or
it goes in the nasal.
And it's mostly for the meth that they're confiscating lately, and so that the dogs don't have an overdose of the meth. That's the main reason they carries that. And
Basically any opiate.
Yeah.
Have you
Any
had to use
opiate,
it?
right.
Have you had to use it yet for
No.
him?
thankfully. Yeah, but he has done quite a few meth busts too.
Yeah. We found meth labs in the back of cars. We just recently got some heroin the other night and some marijuana. You just want to work, don't you?
Now, another canine dog that's very popular is a bloodhound. But the bloodhounds are pretty much trained just to search for humans. They don't put them in the drug or the explosive or the cadaver. They're searching for real humans. Last week in Rochester, Wayne County's canine unit was the bloodhound. They only have one bloodhound. The rest are all German shepherds. And the one bloodhound was actually called out on a case of a 70-year-old man who had left his house and they couldn't find him. And so they sent the canine unit out, which did find them. Didn't find the guy, but that was their job. So there are different kinds of canines that they are, but ours is mostly the shepherds. We like their noses. They're chosen mostly because of the snips that they have, the olfactory that they have on their noses. The main reason they have those shepherds.
And he's a tracking dog too, but the bloodhounds, so that's just a completely different
Yeah, that's
dog.
like
They're
their
tracking
dog.
machines.
Yeah.
The bloodhounds can actually determine her odor from my odor and everyone else's odor. They can actually individually determine. Whereas he can to a degree, but not like they can.
One of the pieces of facts that's in the handout that I gave you talks about finding identical twins. They actually have trained dogs so they can spot which twin that they're looking for, rather than the criminal being one twin and not the other. Another thing that they're doing now is they're also learning they're training dogs to sniff out, I gotta find it, because we really found this. Trained to sniff out electronics, like hard drives and thumb drives and other pieces of electronics for illegal data, like pornography, child pornography, things like that. They're training dogs to do that as well. So they're training
Europe
them all.
has beagles that are trained to smell out fruit. They don't want fruit taken from some countries and taken through the airport into another country.
We went to New Zealand and we were waiting to go through security. And here comes this little beagle running down through the airport.
Yeah, they sniff fruit.
Stuck his nose in a lady's bag. And unfortunately, Qantas is not too smart because they had given us apples just before we landed. She didn't eat her apple, so she had put her apple in her handbag.
Right.
The little beagle ran up here, stuck his nose in that bag.
Pull the apple out.
Guy comes along, and the beagle was just going. You didn't see any security people around,
Right.
but there was a security person coming behind.
How do dogs tell when people have dogs to tell if they're diabetic and they're going into a diabetic coma, or they're epileptic and they're
To
going
be
to have a
completely
seizure?
honest with you, I have no idea, but there are diabetic alert dogs. They're seizure dogs.
Yeah, they get them for children, don't they?
Yeah,
Adults too.
It has to do with odor,
yeah.
but I'm not gonna answer that question because I don't know.
You wouldn't think that. I mean, I
When
can't
you go
imagine
through
it.
an airport, just recently went through the airport in Zurich, and the lines were horrendously long. And this guy came along and he broke the line in half and he said, "We're going down here to the next place, and I'm going to put you through the canine unit," and he said, "It'll expedite things." So the dogs walk along the line, one on each side. What are those dogs looking for, do you suppose? I mean, obviously you don't know for sure, but are they looking for firearms, bombs, or?
They could be bombs or narcotics. I'm not positive, but the way the dog smells narcotic, obviously they don't just know where it is. So the longer a narcotic is there, the more the odor emits. And you can't see it, but in this room there's a air current. It could be going that way, it could be going this way. And typically you can see that with a dog. Say there was a narcotic here, say he runs by, he'll head whip and almost like break his ankles to turn back around because he just smelled the narcotic. And we call that a scent cone. Because it starts here, and then when it's going, it gets wider and wider and wider. And it's actually really cool to see the dogs work a scent cone. They'll go to the edge of the cone and come back in, and they just narrow it down to the source. So that may be what they're doing, is trying to find odor, and the dogs, having them on each side, because you don't know what the air current is doing in a room. And having a dog on each side would maximize them picking it up.
Nate, can some people, like public, go to a training and watch to see what's going on in the training sessions? I mean,
So,
it's pretty much mostly.
Most of our trainings are closed doors, plus. There are a lot of sport dog events, being IPO or Schitzend or French Ring, Mondio Ring, American Police Hunt Association, and that's actually a public, quiet, class. And that's actually a public thing, and anyone from the public can attend or even compete in those type of things. I know we do demos all summer, and it's a little tight in here, but if
He
anyone
does
wants
great
to,
demos. Pumpkin Fest comes in, you know, if
and
you
if
haven't seen
anyone,
him,
we
come
have
to
a
the
Facebook
Pumpkin
page. If anyone's on
Yeah.
Facebook, it's City of Cortland Canines, and we advertise all of our demos that are upcoming.
And Homefront Canines, if you go to their Facebook page and their Instagram page, when they're training dogs, she puts up things, and it's amazing to see what Donna Lynn has been doing with these dogs. It really
She's
is
a lot
amazing.
better than I am.
Yeah. And she's a little, she's a pistol. She's little, and these dogs listen to her.
I trust you take this dog into the local school
Yep,
children frequently, so
yep. We go.
mind
in, we do.
mind your P's and Q's to the kids.
Yeah, we do school searches, and we do meet and greets.
Good search.
We just did one with 2 weeks ago, plus. We just did one 2 weeks ago with a daycare. The kids were 4 or 5 years old. And that was good. He's great, like I said, he's great with kids.
Next month, he's going to do the Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
The Girl Scout, and along with Kim, the female handler, the two of them are going to go do a meet and greet for all the Girl Scouts at their encampment. They're having an overnighter. And so the next day, they're doing round robin rotations, and Nate and Kim both have agreed to come in with their dogs so that the girls can see that even girls can be a dog handler, and then see the beauty of being a dog handler. Frankie is a great dog too. Between the two of them, they're really good. They work well together. Look at him, so good, yeah.
Alrighty, there you going.
I know. Are there any other questions? Anybody have anything else? I also have, and I do have to recommend this, if you don't, I mean, I'm pushing for money. These are our new pens, which ride beautifully, and they also have a stylus on the end of it. These are only $2, so if you'd like to just drop some money in, I would appreciate it.
Thank
But
you.
thank
Thanks
you
for
very much.
having us.
Any
We gotta get
questions?
to work.
And I was going to, any questions, our numbers on the back of the brochure page. If you go to our Facebook page and push like, anytime we post anything up that we're doing, any places that we go that we're going to have an event, or any demonstrations that Nader's going to be at, or any new dogs or new equipment that we provide for it, we post it on our Facebook page, so that way you get to see. But I highly encourage you to go to the website so you can see all the dogs we have on our website.